know, right? Or I felt it in my skin. I felt it when I ate food XYZ. So that's much closer to the soul than the bar graphs. Nobody connects with that.
I used to work for Steve Jobs. After my earth science experience, I went to work for him in these two companies, one that he bought, Pixar. I didn't spend a lot of time with them, but I spent some. And it was failing at the time. It was a very sad story. And Next, which was failing at the time too. It was a very sad story. But Pixar pulled out a miracle with Toy Story, and then Next got bought by Apple, and Steve pulled out a miracle in turning Apple around. But one of the things that I did for him was to arrange for his keynote speeches, like at the Javits Center with 4,000 people and so on. And we would spend hours together preparing these talks. And then the guy who took over for me after I left, when Steve died, he left Apple, but until that time, he oversaw 130 of Steve's keynotes, including the iPhone intro and so on. So I interviewed him, and we had a fascinating talk about it. He said Steve would call, he was a night owl like you, and after the kids were to bed and his wife was to bed, he would call up Wayne Goodrich, and the two of them would work on their upcoming keynote for 30 days, 3 hours a night, and it would involve rehearsing on stage 2 weeks before and then rehearsing on stage in front of an audience a week before. And Steve would say, at least in the Apple days, well, this is worth $1 billion to me, so I got to get it right. But the two of them learned a tremendous amount from Pixar, and I learned a few things from Pixar too, and how stories are formulated and told. You know, and it comes down to this key emotion. Scientists want to go for evidence, but consumers, you know, it's all about the emotion. And so one of the things that I think is very clever is when companies hire PR firms. We did, you know, with Steve, I remember in one meeting we hired this ad agency. It was a wonderful ad agency, and Steve was always so exuberant about his computers. You know, they would ask him, Steve, what is the one thing you want to get across? What is the hill you have to defend? Don't give me 5 things. Give me one thing. And he'd say, no, you don't understand. It isn't one thing. There's 7 things that make this computer so great. And it's the addition of all 7 that, you know. I remember the head of the agency started crumpling up papers into a ball when Steve was talking like this at the conference room table, and he crumpled up 6 of them. And then when Steve was done with his rant, he scooped up 5 of them and threw them at Steve and said, catch. And they went all over the place. Then he had one left, and he threw it at Steve and said, catch, and Steve caught it. And that changed Steve forever. And you'll notice that in those Mac versus PC ads, they were genius. There was a cool guy and a not so cool guy, and you wanted to be that cool guy. And it was always one thing, and all the distractions were pulled away. It was a white background, there's no distractions.
Hello, I'm a Mac. And I'm